what I'm arguing is that the Maharal is saying that origins is beyond human understanding. The scientist, because he's dealing with Chachma, is actually possibly closer to the truth than the Navi, but we wouldn't even know if that's true. We wouldn't even know on what things he's right, what things he's wrong. We're just totally at a loss on the entire topic of Bereshit Aleph.
Does that mean you can't conclude it? I mean, all the scholarly assemblages in the Cretaceous period have no basis in reality or philosophically?
I don't know what he'd say because he's talking about things coming into existence. So some of what I would think he would say that some of what we see is real and some of what we see we're misinterpreting because we don't know how things came into existence. But since we don't know how long it took, because the word day is already like totally means something we can't understand. It could, I mean, there's no reason to say it's not real. You just don't know. I mean, it's like we're ignorant.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a great resolution to the problem. You're wrong and you're wrong, and everybody get angry at me.
From a like a scientific exploration of earlier times in the universe, like it sounds like he's saying that the process of coming into being is fundamentally different than existence as a thing after you've already come into being. And
right.
to me, that sounds like a discussion of how, like, the laws of physics may have been different, like during the Big Bang. They say things
or
may
inflation, or
yeah.
Only if you think that we properly understood. In other words, if you're exploring the past, and the past at some point is incomprehensible, you don't know how much of what you're projecting in the past is real and how much you're projecting a comprehensible story on an incomprehensible past. All we know is that human history was real. Now, I could tell you that Rav Dessler runs with this, but I don't know if what he says is what the Maharal meant, but he quotes this Maharal, and he says that well, basically, his belief is that time isn't linear, and 6 days measured in one direction, in one way, and in those days it was what 15 billion years measured a different way, are actually measuring the same thing, and even weirder, the next 6,000 years of history are the same as the 6 days, even though you think one comes after the other. It's because you don't understand how time works. And the whole human experience of linear time is caused by the Eitz Hadas. So until the eating from the Eitz Hadas, we don't even know what time was, because linear time is a perception, and it's a perception only of human beings after the Eitz Hadas. So that's kind of a, and he bases it on this Maharal that, everything that happens before, but he goes further than the Maharal because he's taking it to the end of the Eitz Hadas story. Right? He's saying when we're kicked out of Gan Eden, that's when comprehensible history starts. And before that, we don't even know what time is.
Wow. Sorry, the signal was
yeah, I saw you drop
low in the laundry room. I'm pleasantly surprised I got any at all.
Okay, so that's sort of, but that's where he's going. And next he's going to talk about the mission of Ein Dorshim and why those 3 topics, Masa Bereshis, Masa Merkava, and Arayos, which I'll tell you right now, he says it's not about sex. should only be taught in small groups.
All right, I have to switch to Derashah now. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was going to end now anyway. I'm
Katina
kind of frustrated
Katinadova.
that I didn't record it though, but oh well.
All right.
Last time this happened, or the other time this happened, I made notes in a blog post and posted that instead, but it's bothersome. It bothers me not to have a complete set. It's okay though. With the number of hits my YouTube videos get, I know no one's watching the complete set anyway.
Oh,
It's fine. The only part of all this that really bugs me is that my kids aren't like I always said, like a lot of authors said, the whole point is that my kids will know what I think. But even my frum kids haven't picked up my book. That hurts. That I got to tell you hurts. I mean, the fact that the sales weren't what I wanted them to be, 600 copies is nice. And, if I wanted more, then maybe I'm just, overestimating. But like that none of my kids actually picked up the book is kind of bothersome. The nearest I had was my Israeli son-in-law, two Anglo parents, two American parents, Israeli son-in-law, did pick up and learn the introduction to Shari Yosher because the book exists. I wanted to know what I thought, but he
oh,
didn't. No, and I'm mentioning this because he's English as a second language.
oh.
Well, first language, whatever. He thinks in Hebrew. I mean, I can't really say it's a second language because mommy and daddy spoke English to him as a baby, but he thinks in Hebrew. So the fact that he did the Hebrew and didn't do the whole book is, a little more understandable. But that's it. I mean, nobody else. My daughters didn't. I said something to my daughter recently because she was going off to the dorm, and I said something about, I don't know, it was something fundamental about like Beinanim L'Chavero being central, and the main purpose of Beinanim L'Makom and learning Torah is so that you're better at bringing Hashem's good to other people, and you should partner with him and emulate him. And I saw the light bulb go on. It's like nothing at all what you learned in school. It's like, oh, this is what you believe.
I think with kids, it comes out in the in-between spots, the interstitial spaces.
Yeah.
Nathan and I were downstairs last night doing
Speaking
some
of
work.
kids,
Speaking of kids, and Rick was upstairs in his office practicing. He's Shliach Tzibor for tomorrow night Mariv and second day Musaf.
Oh, wow.
He was going
I'm
through
totally unsurprised.
Right. He used to do a lot more, but we have more people who are capable, and we have now with Zoom, we have fewer services, but whatever. He was going through the Machzor to see where he was. And I just caught Nathan humming along.
Right.
And noticing that the Machzor that we have at our shul, like the PU team change depending on what book you've got.
Yeah.
There are plenty where that's one, this letter is this word or that word, or that they've taken out, Hayom has lost verses, lost lines or added lines. And I thought, okay, he's been paying attention. And then I also thought back to when he was in college for the year and a half that he managed to be in college, and went to Chabad on campus and basically was the Shliach Tzibor for the entire Yontif when he was there, because
wow.
he'd just been listening. He wasn't, but there's no interaction about it. It's just sort of, if you can be a fly on the wall, you find out what the kid actually has heard.
Right.
But in the face to face, not there. So go figure.
So Stag, Rick is known in the Musar Institute community for putting Musar thoughts to blues tunes. So
Oh,
the idea that somebody who enjoys music that much is Chazan was like, I'm not surprised. Like,
Right. That's
cool.
yeah. Go check his website out. He's got a lot of stuff on there now, more and more. Musar
yeah,
Blues.
Oh, wow.
you
Cool.
sure I hit the right one? Maybe I had somebody else's blue site.
Yeah, it's and a bunch of essays as well.
Yeah.
He's working on something right now for V'chol Ma'aminim, because there are so many people that we know that say, well, but I don't believe all those things. Like,
Right.
that's such a simplistic way of looking at a piyut. I mean, this is poetry, right? So
Right. So Rabbi Mordechai Turchiner asked that question this year.
mhm.
He has a kollel that is sponsored by YU and I forgot what Israeli institution in
Oh,
Toronto.
Torah Mitzion?
Yeah. So he's Termit Zion Zichron Dov in Toronto.
Yeah. I went to his goodbye event.
When he left Allentown.
No. When he started leaving there, I think he still might teach for them long distance, but he's now I think he's a shul rabbi in West Hempstead now.
I don't think that's correct.
This was just like a month or two ago.
Oh, so then it could be correct. I was teasing him that like he has to save a spot in his base medrash because I want to learn with him when I retire. I don't though. I don't want to retire to Toronto. It was just
Ah,
give it out of it. Because I listen to his podcast, which is very, very active. I mean, like it's a lot of time invested.
no.
So anyway, see, he talked about the things that we accept as basically true, even though there's a lot of counter evidence. He compared it to Nara Easy V'gam Zakanti V'lo Easy Tzadik Nezov. So David is going to say he never saw that Tzadik was abandoned. Why he didn't look at a mirror once. So you're like, right? That was sort of the although given his history, he may have not thought of himself as a tzaddik. Depends how guilty he felt. But
It depends which parak of Tehillim you're reading.
yeah, well, you also don't know when they were written, except for like when it says, Mishana, Ladama Mishana, so is Olive David Melech, when it happened. But,
Right. I just mean that the narrative voice of different Mizmorim express different degrees of righteousness or guilt and different degrees of feeling with God or abandoned by God. And so it like covers like a whole range of human emotions. And in some of them he says, yeah, I'm fine, I'm great, I haven't done anything wrong. And in others he's like, I messed up really, really bad.
like most people,
Mhm.
he doesn't stay in the same place day to day. But
Yeah.
no, his idea was that there are things that are true often enough that we treat the exceptions as exceptions, regardless of how many of them there are. My usual muscle for this, by the way, is why Aristotle never discovered momentum. Okay, no, I write it often enough that I thought both of you would go, and I would have to say it again.
No, I haven't
Okay,
seen it.
okay, so the problem with momentum is that there's always friction. Wind drag, friction, other forms of friction, right? There's always friction. Aristotle had this idea called impetus, and you had an intellect, and an intellect gave impetus to an object. An object would move until the impetus ran out. And it actually fit experimental data much better than momentum because momentum always ran out. Like, what's this? Anything that is in motion will stay in motion unless acted upon by an outside force. But everything on Earth is acted upon by an outside force. So, like how the fact that Newton came up with this is kind of incredible. So Newton is able then to formulate a law of motion that works for moon and planets as well as things on Earth, by making things on Earth an exception.
Mm,
What the Rambam had to do was he had to say that the spheres that the planets are embedded in, well, we nowadays call orbits, but they thought they were some kind of quintessence, fifth element, quintessence, sphere that the planet was embedded in. That's fun. So those had to have intellects because the impetus didn't run out. So somebody
mm,
has to be reinserting impetus. And so much of the Rambam's metaphysics is based on this Aristotelian idea, like, where does nature happen? There has to be intellects that are telling nature to happen because something has to be giving impetus to the grass to grow. So when the Chazal say that every blade of grass has a malach that tells it to grow, that must be the Aristotelian intellect giving impetus to the grass to grow. So this
mhm,
whole metaphysics is based upon this idea of impetus. But the well, it's not based on. I mean, he found parallels in what Chazal said by using Aristotle's idea of intellect and impetus. But in any case, the right, it turns out that Newton was right, even though there's always an exception to the rule. Right. So Schar V'Onesh is always true, but in this world, there's always some other force. Right. The thing in motion will stay in motion unless acted upon by an outside force. And in this world, it's always a mess. So there's always something else going on. Right.
mhm,
Nara Yisir Gamzakanti V'Lo Tagnezov is a real rule, but right.
Right.
And you could say the same thing with Chol Ma'aminim. By the
mhm,
way, Chol Ma'aminim is probably more talking to yourself than talking about the people around you.
mhm,
Right. It's
definitely.
like I'm sitting here in Rosh Hashanah.
Mhm.
For the moment, the part of me that believes is here. The other part of me that has its questions.
Right. Mhm,
I think that's I think what it's referring to more than everybody in the world believes.
right.
He also threw out the possibility that it's aspirational,
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely.
but the
Yeah.
tense is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's not v'chol ya'aminu.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, or it's aspirational of what relationship I want to have with Hashem. I'm going to describe it in 22 different ways. And
Mhm.
to understand the one above in these formats. And a way to say, I have the proof text here. You were like this before. So I want to have that again too.